Hey guys, it is Will from Saints Nation here in a bit of a different setup, not in the podcast studio. Because today I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a preview, but just an overview as well of how St Kilda's off-season could play out, a bit of the salary cap, what players are we going after, stuff like that, and answering the questions as well that you guys wanted asked. I put up an Instagram story last night just going over, what questions you guys would like to see asked, because the trade period, the salary cap, it's all confusing. It's a lot more confusing than sports like the NBA where it's all public knowledge. In the AFL, we don't get 100% of information. We don't get player salaries, the exact numbers of them anyway. But I thought I'd just jump straight into it. So just a bit of the background first. So the 2025 salary cap. So this is the salary cap for the playing list this year, the 2025 season. It is 17.7 million. We have not used all of that salary cap. We've only used 95% of it. Every club has to use 95% of their salary cap each year. This 800,000, 900,000, that gets carried over into the 2026 salary cap, which the 2026 salary cap is 18.2 million. This essentially leaves St Kilda with a 2026 salary cap of 19.1 million, which is pretty big. It's almost $1 million more than we would have usually. It's 105% of the salary cap, and I just sort of wanted to explain that carryover cap as well. So like I said before, all clubs have to use 95% of the salary cap, and then that 5% carryover, there's a 3-4 year window that you get to use that money, and if you don't use that money in that window or that period, it just simply evaporates. You don't get access to it anymore. So you've essentially wasted $1 million of your books for no reason. This is the last year of that period that St Kilda are in now, this 2026 period. If we don't use that extra 5% on top of our salary cap this year, it essentially goes to waste. So this will make more sense when I explain a deal like Tom de Koning, why we're giving him so much money. It's essentially because we have access to this extra $1 million pretty much to give him. And then also, so how much room will we end up having in 2026? So since, player salaries aren't a public information, we can only go off rumours. Pretty close to me, I've had it not confirmed, but I'd say 90% confirmed, St Kilda have up to $4 million in base salary to spend in 2026 so far. Obviously, you take into account we have about 15 players unsigned from the 2025 list. We'll go after free agents. We'll also want to reserve around 500 for draft as well. But we have a base of $4 million for 2026, along with that 900,000 from the 5% carryover. So we're looking to spend around $5 million in this off season, which is a lot of money. And when I put it to you like that, it probably makes a lot more sense as to why we're offering a Tom de Koning $1.7 million to join the footy club. Obviously, along with free agents, you got to pay a lot more to get him out than to keep him to stay. So for someone like Naz, I know a lot of people, he's the biggest story in football at the moment. Why aren't we giving Naz 1.7 million? It's simply you got to pay players more to get him out of a club than you got to pay more to get him to stay. So we'll probably jump straight into Tom de Koning. He's one of the two players I've got at 100%. We're 100% landing Tom de Koning at this rate. He's playing injured, he's playing out of form, and he's playing out of position at Carlton. He's 100% joining us on a 7-year, $12.5 million deal. That's essentially 1.7, 1.8 million base salary per year. Seems like a lot. Not really. The AFL salary cap's going up around 5% each year, especially with the new collective bargaining agreement and the new TV deal. That goes straight into AFL player salaries. So the salary cap continues to rise, and when you take into account that 5% carryover that we get from last year, this year going into next year for Tom de Koning, if we simply just put that 900k into Tom de Koning's 1.7 a year deal, that makes Tom de Koning an 800k player, which is pretty much what you'd be paying him normally. I'd say he's probably about an $800, $900, $1 million a year player at the moment at the Blues. And when you take into account that 900% or 900k, 5% extra salary, makes him an $800 a year base contract. Makes a lot more sense why we're paying Tom de Koning so much. We have to use that money now. Tom de Koning's very lucky he's a free agent when he is. We've gone off after, midfielders. We've gone after Rao, Merritt. We've gone after Wiedering. We've gone after LDU Brayshaw. Tom De Koning's very lucky that he is a free agent in 2026 and that he's getting that money, because if it was next year, Tom De Koning would not be getting that money from St Kilda, just to put it straight. The other player I have that we're basically 100% guaranteed to land is League. So he's 4 years, $3 million. The deal that's speculated from Tom Morris, that's $750,000 per year. That is also doubling GWS's base rate for him, essentially, of $400K a year over a 2-year contract. So put it in the books. League will be a St Kilda player next year. The only problem is Tom De Koning is free agent. We don't have to give up any picks, any players for Tom De Koning. He can just come straight across. League isn't a free agent, so we're going to have to trade for him. What his value is, a bit speculative. No one really knows. He was a former first-round pick a couple of years ago, but he was also a mature age first-round pick. So he was about 21, 22 when he came into the league. And what's his value? It's really unsure. I'll get into it a bit with some players we might be trading away, unfortunately, this year. But probably anywhere from a future second. There'll definitely be some pick swaps involved. But the 100%, the deal we're giving to League is pretty much 4 years, $3 million. That will also be front-loaded, which I'll go into a bit as well. But yeah, we'll need to trade for League. So what that value is, we're not quite sure. Probably the Naz extension is something I want to touch on as well. To me, the Naz extension will 100%... I won't go 100%. I'll go 90%. The Naz extension will 90% happen. It is a 2-year deal at $1.4 million. That is... at $2.4 million, which is $1.2 million a year, I'm pretty sure, which is pretty fair for Naz. I think there's another deal, 2 years, $2.8 million. I think that's been reported as well. So it's anywhere from 1.2 to 1.4 for Naz in 26 and 27. He's a non-free agent like League, so if he was to request a trade, the SA clubs would have to trade for him. And when you look at the deals, especially Port Adelaide to me, if he did leave, were the red hot favourites. Their biggest bargaining piece was Miles Bergman to me. And the second Miles Bergman signed on for a 2-year deal, taking him to restricted free agency. It was pretty known to me that Naz was going to stay at the club for at least 2 years. I've been on Ben Williams, who's his manager. He comes to Melbourne on Wednesday, which is when I'm filming this. Ben Williams, he's a bit of a personality, if you don't know. If you want to look him up, he was on the first season of Big Brother Australia. Loves his social media, loves stuff like that. He's a bit of a personality. He would love to stretch this Naz deal out because it keeps his name in the papers. So take that into account with Naz. And also an important thing to talk about with Naz is that since round 1, it has always been reported this will be an end-of-year decision. It's not about money or anything. It's just about purely homesickness. Does he want to return to South Australia to play footy with his mates? Or does he want to stay at St Kilda where he's grown a connection with players like Mason Wood, Brad Hill? He's grown a great connection with Ross Lyon. Where does he want to stay? I think it's 90% he'll stay on a 2-year deal. We'll back ourselves in to become a better club by then. Hopefully that young core we've drafted from 21 to now starts clicking. Hopefully we make a push, top 10, top 8, and that continues to keep Naz happy, and we'll be able to keep him at the club. Another thing worth noting with Naz, we have a great SA player base. We've got Philippo, we've got Wilkie, we've got Kilda, just to name a few, so it's not like he's the only South Australian player there. And then also touching on Philippo, nothing official yet, but definitely going to sign a long-term extension soon. Nothing announced yet from the club. But it was reported about 2 months ago now that the deal was pretty much done. Probably just wait until the end of the year to announce that one. And if Naz does leave, what are we going to get back? It's pretty obvious to me. It's going to be Zach Butters. That will be the player we ask for straight away. He's a free agent in 2026, so if he leaves, Port will just get a compensation pick. Things like what we got for Josh Battle last year. Would you rather get Naz or would you rather get pick 10 in the draft next year? I think that's pretty obvious. So if Naz does leave, Butters will be on the top of the trading block, I reckon. Just a few more names to watch out for. So Jack Silvani, Brody Kemp, Harry Mackay, the 3 Carlton boys, obviously for Sauce. Nothing 100% there just yet. These are more rumours for these players, but just some names to keep an eye on, considering once I get into the salary cap spend so far, we have a fair bit of money left. Also, Sam Flanders and Clayton Oliver, some players on some big coin who we could potentially buy low on. been talked about a fair bit. Clayton Oliver, if Melbourne wanted to get rid of him, they'd have to chuck in a first round pick. I don't see it that way. You'd probably just buy low on Oliver, get rid of him for a late second, early third. I think that's probably his value. And then Cam Mackenzie, a name to keep an eye on as well. Again, I don't know his exact chance of landing at St Kilda, especially this year when we've got so much going on, it seems. I'd probably wait until next year when he's out of contract. It's a lot easier to pull a player out when they're out of contract. But then just to break down our 2026 salary cap. So again, all of this is speculative. We don't have any official numbers. It's just the way the AFL works. So we have 4.9 million to spend. 1.7 of that goes to De Koning. 0.8 of that goes to Aliir. 1.4 of that goes to Nasai, but let's say Nasai is already on 400 anyway, so that's only $1 million extra added. We've got around 1.4 million left, and then you take into account we're going to spend 400, 500 on rookies. You know, a base rookie salary is around 1.25, 1.5k a year, so we'll spend 400, 500 on the draft. We usually take about 4 or 5 picks. We've still got $1 million left. It's a lot to spend. Again, it's about 5% of that salary cap, but we can't carry it over into next year. So what are we going to do with this cash? Most obvious one to me is we'll just use it to re-sign the players we already have. So you got to think of Max Hall. He's on the end of his deal. Same with the Marcus Windhager. Marcus Windhager's a bit of a weird one. He plays probably in form every week and then he's out of form the next week. So a bit of a contract call on him. He's definitely had interstate clubs interested in him. But I think we'll mainly use that $1 million left to re-sign players. We'll also potentially grow it further by trading Rowan Marshall, which is the big rumour. Mitch Cleary's basically said he's gone. Where that is, I don't know, to GWS Geelong. His value's a first round pick, so you gotta think, could we bring in a Sam Grill, who has been seen as a top 20 pick, Fred Rodriguez, Javon Filippo, keep Filippo happy at the club already, so it could be interesting to see what we do. I do think Marshall getting traded is definitely an option now. He's probably around 700, 800 a year, so that gets us back up to 1.7 million to spend. But also, if we trade him to GWS, like has been rumoured a fair bit, it's also going to get an elite Aliir deal done pretty easy. I don't think it will just be that. I think there'll be picks involved, stuff like that. I don't know if GWS have a bid. I don't think so. They don't have to bid on any players, so they'll 100% keep their first round pick, you'd think, this year. But it will be pretty interesting. The other thing we can do with cash is a buy low on a Clayton Oliver type, a Sam Flanders type, like I said before. We can also front load a Tom De Koning deal. Essentially, we can pay Tom De Koning around $2.5 million, $3 million next year if we really wanted to. We've got that much money to spend. And then it just frees up money on the back end so we can pay, you know, a Mitch Owens, a Filippo, and Naz if he stays. Players like that, a lot more money in the back end of their deals. So it's pretty intriguing to see what we can do with the cash, but I think it's time to get into some fan questions, see what you guys want to see answered. Alrighty, so we've got a fair few questions here, so let's get straight into them. From Crusoe24, how many brown paper bags will Naz be getting? Hopefully a fair few. He's worth every cent we're going to pay him, whether that's 1.4, whether that's 2 million, we'll just have to wait and see. We've got Kyle Bot. Should we trade our first round pick for Cam Mackenzie? I wouldn't be doing it this year, not while he's in contract. I'd wait till next year, see where he's at. Will Day comes back this week, so I don't think he'll be playing. Players like Warple, they might stay. So where's Cam Mackenzie's spot in that midfield? It's really just a wait and see for me. I think it's more of a next year thing rather than a this year thing. We've got Tyson J. Smith. Do we start thinking about life after King? We need a McStay type up forward. I think the King talk is absolutely stupid. No offense to you, Tyson, but we haven't seen King at all this year, which is fair. I get why people are, you know, starting that narrative. He's on a heavily front-loaded deal. Same with what we're probably going to do with De Koning. He's probably on about $1 million, $1.2 million bucks this year. You know, evens out, back into that deal, he'll probably be on 800, 700, hopefully. I think the King talk is just stupid. His trade value would be not close to nothing, but he'd be nowhere near what he's worth. I think it's just worth keeping him. We've given him an entire year off this year to get his body right. Hopefully he can come back fit and firing next year. We've got GFM with Naz the midfielder. Has that reprioritised our draft selection for 2026? I don't think so. I think this year, I think we were into a Archie Ludwig type, who was a key forward. Unfortunately, he went down with injury, so he could slide a bit past our pick. I do think we'd still be looking at an explosive midfielder just to pair alongside Naz. Just because we've got Naz playing that midfield role now doesn't mean, we're done searching for that next explosive mid. I think we'll still be looking at a Sam Grill type, Ollie Greaves, who's the other one? Dyson Sharp. Players like that, we'll be looking at them with our first selection this year, which will hopefully be a top 5 or top 10 pick, given where St Kilda have finished on the ladder. It will just depend on the bids. Ollie Greaves is one, so Cooper from the podcast, he had high hopes for Greaves, so he's one I'm interested in. He's a bit smaller than a Josh Smiley, but he's a Josh Smiley type, if you were big into the draft last year. We've got Joel. Poe is due to re-sign. How much of the pie will he receive? We need him to sign some youth. Bit of a weird one with Poe. So Poe's already signed an extension with St Kilda previously. So his rookie contract, I believe, was from 2023 to 2024. Last year in 2024, he re-signed until 2026. So he's already got a contract, a 4-year extension pretty much till 2026 from his rookie deal. I think the next deal will probably see him get up to 2029, 2030, which is his free agency year. And I don't think he'd be asking for much yet. I think he'd probably be on that 500, 600k a year range on this new deal. Definitely not demanding the likes of $1 million plus. But again, he's a player we could look to front load or back load. Steven Silvani, Gubby Allen, head office people like that will have this all under wraps. They'll know what they're doing. I think it'll be about 600, 500 a year for Filippo. He definitely won't be asking for much. We've got Marcus Hollow. Is Jack Steele to the Giants a real possibility? Been hearing a few rumours. I think Jack Steele is much less likely to get traded than a Rowan Marshall. I think Jack Steele's probably settled down a fair bit. Would he want to go back to GWS? He's got a contract for a fair few more years. I do think the Steele trade or, the rumours are becoming a bit more unlikely for now. Just right now, something could always spark up. There's been rumours pretty much the past 3 years of trading Jack Steele. Again, I think it also depends what we're getting offered, but personally, don't know Jack Steele personally, but I don't think he'd want to leave Melbourne anymore. I'm pretty sure he's just bought a new house. He was recently engaged, so definitely don't think he'd be looking for a move outside of Victoria at least. We've got Curdy Boy. What draft compensation will we get if Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller leaves? So this is a bit of a reason I'm making the video as well. So if Naz leaves, he's not a free agent, so we won't get any draft compensation. The compensation we get will have to be done through trade. So if Naz was to leave, personally, I don't think we get any draft compensation. I think it would pretty much just be a straight swap for Butters. There might be some pick swaps involved, but hopefully we don't have to worry about that. Hopefully Naz re-signs this week. We've got Brett Quinn, trade Marshall for a late first or early second and grab Javon Filippo. He looks the goods. He's definitely a player I'm interested in. I've talked about him pretty much earlier in this video as well. I think it helps keep Mateus at the club. And Filippo was a player I was interested in at the start of the year. I do think we'll get rid of Marshall. I just don't think GWS are the front runners. I think Geelong are probably the front runners. And this isn't saying I want to trade Rowan Marshall. I'd love to see how that Rowan Marshall TDK outfit looks for at least 1 year, but I do think it's starting to become a bit more likely Rowan Marshall won't be in red, white and black colours next year. Trurak Cowboy, our forward line needs some work. Who can we get as a damaging small forward mid? It's definitely an interesting question. I don't have any names written down, but I think the biggest one we'd be looking at is Lance Collard just to develop. I know a lot of people are a bit mad with how his development's going. You just got to remember, he's a young kid. He's from WA. Probably wasn't too happy when he got, called to move to Victoria, considering he's an Eagles NGA player. So Eagles didn't get the opportunity to match that bid, but I think Lance Collard's our number one option as a developing small forward midfielder. I think not a player we'd be interested in anymore, but it's definitely a position of need. We attacked it last year with we were trying to trade up for Joe Berry, trading this year's pick. Looking at where we've landed now, probably lucky we didn't trade for Joe Berry. He's probably enjoying his time at Port Adelaide a bit as well. Maybe he's a player, if Naz wanted to leave, we could bring back to Victoria. But the name that shot up in my head straight away was Malcolm Roses. So we haven't had any links directly to Roses. He's out of contract this year. He tried getting out of Gold Coast last year. Gold Coast pretty much just said, no, we'll keep you for now. You've got one more year left on your deal. Another one I'd probably be thinking about, Jesse Motlop. I'm not a massive fan of Motlop, I must say. I think he's probably more likely to stay at Carlton from anything, but Malcolm Roses Jr. and Jesse Motlop are probably the two names that pop up in my head when you think of small forwards who are going to be available in this current off-season. Gold Coast need picks, Carlton need picks. And then Harvey Kerr. So I want to know if we can afford TDK for 1.7 million, legally for 7.5, or 750k, sorry, and Asano Wanganeen Malira for 1.4 million overtime. As I've pretty much broken down in this video, we 100% can. Most of those contracts are going to be heavily front-loaded while we've got all this salary room. You got to think, trade away a Marshall, that opens up heaps more salary room as well. And we'll delist a lot of players. We'll draft players for rookie deals. They're going to be cheaper than an AFL player's minimum contract. A rookie deal is about 1.25. A minimum player contract is 1.5k. So it'll be pretty interesting. That's all the fan questions I've got for now. Anyway guys, I hope you did enjoy today's video. It was probably a bit longer than you thought it'd be. I think we've probably gone to the 20-30 minute mark. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope it was a bit informative. Obviously it's all speculation at the end of the day when it comes to player contracts. No official numbers. I do wish that would change. I understand why the AFL don't do it, but it would be pretty interesting to see how much players are getting paid, how much we're actually going to pay Tom de Koning. Because we know the media likes to buff those numbers up a little bit for the story. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Become a channel member if you haven't. Help support us. And, you know, helps us get more videos out to you. Helps with the podcast. Listen to the Saints Nation podcast if you haven't already. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube as well. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And I'll see you guys in the next one.